I once bought a make your own hemp necklace kit and tried to smoke the cord because I thought hemp equals weed. Reddit. What was your most spectacular misguided failure? I've always been able to come up with catchy names and titles for things. At age 15, my friends and family had said things along the lines of, if only you could get a job doing something like that. One day of extreme boredom, I was perusing the phone book and saw listings for title companies. I thought, oh wow, I actually can get a job doing what I'm so good at, so I began calling many of them asking if they were hiring. The first few weren't, but then I finally found one that was, and they asked me what sort of experience I had and I said, none yet, but I'm really good at coming up with titles of things, and I proceeded to list off the many titles of term papers, short stories, ideal pet names, etc. that I had thought of for friends and family. The guy on the phone was laughing and trying so hard to choke it back. Finally he asked if I was messing with him, and then he very patiently and kindly explained what exactly a title company does. He thanked me for making his week, though. That is so cute. Growing up Mormon, I was told that drinking coffee would send me to heck, so I ate coffee grounds. I also thought that it doubled as chew. My uncle does chewing tobacco, so I was the 12-year-old kid walking around the schoolyard thinking I was a badass spitting out brown coffee spit on a caffeine jitter. No wonder I was so popular with the ladies. I imagined you sending an older friend into a gas station to buy you coffee grounds. I make hemp soap and moisturizer, and grown adults always ask me whether it gets you high, even after explaining hemp equals marijuana. After putting on some samples, I've had people say, wow, my arm is tingling. Don't worry, you are not alone. Many people think hemp and marijuana are the same. Placebo is a powerful drug. For some reason as a child I was convinced that the cups used in baseball were for peeing in while you were in the outfield. So on the first day of t-ball I thought I'd see how the cup worked. You can imagine the rest. On my first day of t-ball, I thought that to tag someone out in baseball t-ball, you had to actually throw the ball at the runner. Beamed some poor little girl right in the face. When I was 16 I accidentally drove 3 hours from my house trying to get to a friend from school's house. I drove 200 miles from Kansas City to the Iowa border because I missed an exit on the highway. Once I saw Amish people I figured it out and turned around. One recess in middle school, a friend of mine managed to tie my shoelaces together without me noticing. By the time I realized, he was already starting to make his escape. I threw my leg at him like Bruce Lee. Seeing as my feet were basically tied together, the kick brought my other leg with it. I had tripped myself. I brought great dishonor to my family. For some reason I read dinosaur instead of dishonor. I was also 13. We had a big end of year party for all the 8th graders at my middle school. There were balloons, and people were inhaling the helium to make their voices all high pitched and chipmunky. I tried to do the same, but, never having done it before, didn't know what I was doing. So, over and over, I sucked helium from a balloon into my mouth and tried to swallow it, then felt like I was going to vomit, opened my mouth, and expunged the helium. After that I would talk and not understand why my voice was normal. I once inhaled so much helium at work that I passed out in a fit of delirious laughter. I fell face first onto a tile floor and cut my chin pretty good, and it left a scar. Once when I was in 8th grade, I was hanging out with some high schoolers who I thought were super cool. They were talking about getting stoned. Thinking I was clever and would look totally educated if I contributed to this conversation, I asked, doesn't it only happen in third world countries? I totally want to use that line now. I thought masturbating with soap would be a good idea when I was a young lad. I was wrong. You're right. Hand sanitizer is the way to go. I used to light incense and try to breathe in the smoke from them, thinking that it would get me high. One time when I was a kid I tried to save my chewed gum during a movie by sticking it in my underwear, and my mom had to rip it from my prepubescent peach fuzz. Also wanna add that I'm a girl, so at least I wasn't that embarrassed with my mom seeing me naked and covered in chewed gum. Probably one of the most embarrassing memories of my childhood. Somewhere around 4th grade my friend got a custom BMX bike from his parents. At the time, and possibly still, there was a BMX bike company called S&M that made custom frames. So he called me after he got it and said, dude, I got this awesome bike today. It's an S&M. I guess the frame is called a Calgeral. I don't know what that is, but it's awesome. So of course, when Christmas rolled around, I asked Santa for an S&M Calgeral and nothing else. Oh god, why? I once poured Sprite on a fire because I thought it was flammable. Everyone got mad at me for putting out our tiny bonfire and then proceeded to make fun of me for the rest of the night. My life. That's like saying ketchup is hair. You know those dinosaurs you put in water and they grow? I hated how long it took to dry out and shrink. So I put it in the microwave. It took about 5 seconds for the tail to fall off and start steaming. I had some of those in pill form. Yep, I swallowed it. I wanted a Trex in my tummy. On a Cub Scout camping trip, the Scoutmaster was a constant chain smoker. A bunch of us were sitting in a tent while it was raining and we all got the idea to try smoking. Did we get a kid whose father was the Scoutmaster to steal one of his father's cigarettes? Nope. We were resourceful scouts. We made our own cigarettes from dried pine needles and post-it notes. It wasn't the satisfying mild smoke we were expecting. This reminds me of a story my grandfather would tell me a lot. He too was a Scoutmaster and smoked a lot of tobacco. He was sitting at the campfire smoking away and the boys were in the tents. He apparently overheard them talking about how they wanted to try smoking like their Scoutmaster, so he was like, well crap, and then threw all his smoking stuff into the fire and never smoked again. Silly putty. It was so popular at our school for a while, but it got dirty, lost easily. I found a winner. I went to the local hardware store and bought a block of putty. I had to spend all my allowance and borrow 2 weeks worth of allowance from mum to buy it, but it was over 10 times the amount that came in the $5 packs at the toy shops, and only cost me about $13. I divided it up and packaged it in little containers I found around the place, many being fairly crucial for games or toys I had, but I didn't care because I was about to get rich. I took them to school and started to sell them at first break. By lunchtime, word had spread and I sold almost all of it before the first kid came back saying it didn't bounce. I tested it for the first time, and he was right. Silly putty is meant to bounce. Window putty doesn't. Crap. I spent the rest of the day returning money and getting back the putty and containers, some of which had been thrown out, enabling me to say no return equals no refund. I still made a small amount from those ones, but it didn't offset my next 2 weeks of lost allowance. That crushed my entrepreneurial spirit for a while. You should have sold Bounce Element for an extra few dollars and then tell them to return the putty for fusing the bounce and go out to buy the real sticky putty. I used to think that boneless chicken was special chickens grown without bones that would just flop around. I had seen a Far Side comic and somewhere deep in my subconscious the cartoon become a reality for me. Got a lot of crap from my family for that one. The first time I bought weed I ate it, not as in like weed brownies, but I chewed and swallowed the nugs with my friend. We thought we were so high. Well, I think we just lied to each other about feeling high to feel cool. I used to think that fruit gushers, the candy, would actually make my head turn into a fruit when I ate them, cause that's what happened in the commercials. But I really wanted to try them, so I wrote a letter saying goodbye to my parents in case something happened and my head popped. And then I ate one and nothing happened. But it was delicious. When I was little, I thought that gushers were filled with grape juice, and that if you left them alone long enough, they would turn into wine. Sadly, my gushers winemaking business never took off. Not me, but a friend. I had a friend in 12th grade that got super pissed off at his parents. So the only logical thing to do, from his standpoint, was to hijack their car one night. Keep in mind, we live in Georgia and he was 17. That becomes rather important later on. Well, me and a few friends had noticed that this particular friend hadn't been in class for a few days. Then, as if by some sort of magic, he was there after about a week and a half. So we all ran up to him, asking him, dude, what the frick, man? Where have you been? This was his reply, obviously paraphrased, yeah, I got pissed off at my parents the other night. I thought, hey, what the frick? I'm taking the car. So I took the car, and I drove to Buffalo, New York. Holy crap man. Yeah, Buffalo, New York. Anyway, I rented my own hotel room in some dumpy butt ghetto. I sold a few of my guitars to make some money and was kind of wandering around when I had the bright idea to go to Niagara Falls. So I'm driving, right? Well, I missed an exit, or a turn, or something, because I wound up at the US-Canada border, which is freaking perfect because I don't have a passport. So, I get up to the window and tell the guy, look, I don't have a passport, can't I just turn around? The guy told me, yeah, that'll be fine. Just turn right around and come back. Well, that mother was lying because when I did, the customs agents forced me out of my car and arrested me for illegally crossing the border. So, I spent a few days in the Buffalo jail till my parents came up and bailed me out. And here I am. And that's how I got arrested at the US-Canadian border. Still one of the greatest stories I have ever been told. TLDR. Friend got P. Ran away from Georgia. Got arrested by supposed butthole Canadians. Was like 8 years old and had an older friend, 13, who had gotten his hands on a pack of cigarettes, so we went out to the woods to smoke them. He brought a soda can and said, we'll put our butts in here so we don't get caught. So after we smoked, I proceed to put the can up to my butt, up to the can, and rip a huge fart. I had no idea that the end of a cigarette is called a butt. The look on this kid's face, I'll never forget it. I keep picturing this. I swear if I remember this in the middle of class tomorrow, I will fine you. I can't stop laughing. When I was little, I thought the toilet was a portal to a different world. Once, I got mad at my parents, so I proceeded to stand in the toilet and flush it repeatedly. You guys are jerks. I'm taking my crap and leaving. I shared this on another thread, but it seems even more relevant here. So, I was a pretty naive teenager. I thought I was the bee's knees, though, what with my older boyfriend and all. I was trying to impress him one Friday night, and I figured, what the heck, I might as well give him a blowjob. Yeah, easier said than done. I did the whole super sexy slow pulling down on the pants with my teeth. I put my hands around his member, almost teasingly. I pulled my head closer, put his Johnson in my mouth, and I blew. Swear to God, I blew on that damn thing until I turned blue in the face. It literally shriveled up in my hands. I was all, why the frick is this not working? No one had ever told me you're not supposed to blow on it. Why not just call it a suck job? Blow was old Timmy slang for CM, hence the name. The more you know. When I was about 4, I saw my parents doing the dishes after dinner. Me, wanting to be helpful, took some dishes and started rinsing them in the toilet. When I was a kid, I woke up on a fall Saturday morning and poured myself a delicious bowl of Captain Crunch peanut butter in anticipation of a healthy dose of Saturday morning cartoons. I went to fridge to add a 2% and that's when I found out I had no milk. I couldn't give up on the cap, and so I didn't panic and started thinking of solutions. I knew my mom has a juicer and I knew we had cheese and I knew that cheese came from milk. So I decided to reverse that process by shoving all the cheese we had in the house into the juicer to make milk. Long story short, I made a huge mess and ate dry cereal. TLDR. I tried to make milk by sticking cheese down a juicer. That's pretty goddamn clever. Clearly not correct. But I have to appreciate the level of abstract thinking that went into this little plot to douse the cap in milky waves of goodness. Kudos to you. I was 8 years old and had just beaten Mega Man 3 NES on Thanksgiving Day when I defeated Dr. Wily. His final form machine fell into a pile of gooey looking rubble on the ground. Then the word epilogue appeared on the screen for over a year until someone corrected me. I believe the word epilogue was pronounced epilogu. Reading the endings of books became very confusing for me. This is brilliant. First time I was going to try sushi, I bought some and brought it home. Upon sizing it up, I decided the first thing I would try was the green glob, so I stuck the whole glob in my mouth. Wasabi. Learned that green glob wasn't meant to be eaten alone. I actually pranked a classmate into covering his entire piece of nigiri with wasabi. Famous last words were, "Ahaha, you're such a pea. This is how you eat sushi." I laughed so hard I nearly peed my pants afterwards. At party I once saw a coal fall off a hooker onto a carpeted floor. In a move to stop there from being a fire I picked it up and put it back on the bowl with my bare hands. The blister was quite large. Read that as H at first. Took me a second. A few middle school friends and I read somewhere that Native Americans smoked red ants to induce visions. We went to a friend's house whom had anthills and, via sifter and shovel, collected the ants. We thought hotboxing a small city park bathroom would be a good idea. We took the ants, which were in a Ziploc, and poured them in a small cheap metal pipe. The ants began climbing over one another and escaping out the bowl. A needle began the process of ant impalement. Eventually, we had a small bowl of impaled ants. I put the pipe to my lips and lit the bick. Popping ensued, as well as the taste of burnt fleshy exoskeleton death. And then I vomited. I thought smoking a bowl literally meant putting weed in a bowl and lighting it while trying to breathe the smoke. So I got some small clay bowl I made in art class and tried it out. Needless to say, nothing happened. I stole a flare gun when I was a little kid and noticed a 12 gauge buckshot shell fit in it perfectly. I was just about to pull the trigger when my best friend stopped me saying, "You're gonna blow your hand off." I tied the flare gun to a wooden post and a string to the trigger. When I tripped the trigger with the string, the whole thing exploded and there was nothing left of the flare gun and a good sized portion of the stick was shredded, blown up. I guess that wasn't much of a failure considering I could have lost my hand. Your friend is very smart. Thought of another one. I was reading Cosmo magazine when I was 16, trying to pick up some quick and easy sex tips. They mentioned that using a small amount of Vicks Vapor Rub during foreplay could be enjoyable for both the man and the woman. A little light bulb went off in my head. If a small amount is enjoyable, I bet a whole bunch of the stuff would be like a party on and around my ladder bits. Boyfriend was doubtful, but I assured him this was going to be amazing. I piled on a big old glob of the stuff on his pecker. I let the fun commence. Except it wasn't fun at all. It was burning. Burning almost as soon as his dong made contact with my nether region. It was intense, burning in cracks and crevices that I didn't even know existed. He made a break for the shower. I hopped back and forth, all looking kind of like I was doing the Gangnam Style dance. I decided I needed to figure something out. I propped one foot up on the sink, turned the faucet on, and splashed the water towards my vag. Relief. Sweet. Cool. Fresh relief. It was even better once I was able to get into the shower. I threw the vapor rub away after that. Yours are my favorite stories so far. I once gave my boyfriend a sexy massage with peppermint massage oil. When I jacked him off afterwards, it never occurred to either of us until he started screaming and crying. Felt Badman. So one day I was hanging out with some friends. I was about 12 and really liked the smell of lemons. So I took one of those powder packets things that you put in water that happened to be lemon flavored. I also decided to dump it in my hand and proceed to snort all of it at once, hoping to achieve the smell of lemony goodness all day. I was wrong. In 9th grade I bought an 1/8 of oregano for $30. I rolled it up and smoked it on some Bible paper while listening to Cypress Hill. I listened to Crazy Train, snorted lines of Sweet and Low, and masturbated until pee came out of my wiener. It burned my nose and left me wondering what was so cool about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. What? When I was 7ish I would take my dad's blank floppy disks and write the name of a game I wanted to play. Then of course I would put it in the computer and be very confused as to why the game wasn't playing. If only that would work. When I was 9, I watched Scarface and decided I wanted to see what C felt like. Welp, didn't have any C handy, so I tried the next thing I could find that looked like C. Salt, don't do that. Your 9-year-old logic was sheer perfection. Not my worst failure, but it has had a deep impact on my life. So I was really sleepy and hungry, and just got a package of White Castle cheeseburgers. The package said if you're gonna cook them in the oven to cover it with tin foil. I didn't have any, so I covered it in a dinner plate and put some water in it to keep them moist. I was sleepy. That is my excuse. Halfway through I took them out to check on them. The tops were very dry and the bottoms were very damp. I decided to just put them in the microwave, hoping it would even out. What resulted was an inedible amalgamation of water, bun, and meat. I don't want to be responsible for feeding myself. I once microwaved a plum because it was too cold and hurt my teeth. It didn't end well. I tried to go Super Saiyan when I was younger. Needless to say, this resulted in many close calls with me almost crapping my pants. I spent like 2 years of my childhood thinking that I could really fly Kamehameha go Super Saiyan if I just believed. I remember reading somewhere that you'd have to eat 4 pairs of hemp jeans to get any kind of buzz. So you were close, but no cigar. Looks like I found my plans for Friday night. A friend and I tried to smoke bananas. After reading about it in the anarchist's cookbook, we scraped the inside of a few bananas, tried to dry out the goop, then tried to roll up the nasty mess in cigarette papers and smoke it. Shockingly, we did not get high. That crap is bananas. In college, I was trying to look like a badass, so I lied and said I could blow fireballs with liquor. I had never even actually attempted it before. Someone called me on my bluff and gave me some vodka to make a fireball with. I put the lighter in front of my face and spit a mouthful of vodka all over my hand like a complete moron. This person then gave me something else to try, Bacardi 151. To my surprise, I spit out the largest, most perfectly formed fireball you could imagine. I decided this was pure dumb luck and decided never to attempt it again. I retired a champion that day. My best friend and I did this in middle school. Our parents still make fun of us for it. Remember when you idiots tried to smoke a bracelet? When I was about 10, I would light matches, blow them out, and put my mouth over the end to try to inhale the smoke because I thought it would be like smoking cigarettes. Nope, just looked like a dumbass. My friends told me in middle school that you were supposed to trim your pubic hair. I started growing pubes when I was 9. So I had a forest. I was too scared to use a razor, so I used Crayola safety scissors instead. I grew up with no male influence, no dad, no grandfather, so I did what many young kids of single mothers did. I shopped and watched soaps and went to the beauty salon when she got her hair done. No matter what I did, I kept hearing about this awful thing called a period, where you bleed and things hurt. So until I was 13, I was terrified of one day getting my period. Every time I cut myself or scraped my knee and bled, I thought it was about to start. TL. DR. 17 first time sex with GF. Threw her legs over my shoulders and lost my balance, falling off the bed and sprained my ankle. Bo chicka bo wow. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.